Okay, as you can tell by the description, this video is going to have to do with Sten mags. For those of you that do not know what a Sten is a rudimentary basic submachine gun. It was created by the British in 1940 after Dunkirk because they left most of their small arms, not just their heavy equipment, but also a lot of small arms and pretty much all of their machine guns in France. One of the primary machine guns they had at the time, submachine guns, was the Thompson. Well, it takes a long time to manufacture Thompsons, and the production for those was in the United States. They needed something that they could produce themselves cheaply, quickly, easily in the British Isles. So they came up with the Sten submachine gun. I got my communist porculus check, my $600. Ooh, it was so much. And I put it into essentials for the coming fight. I got food. I bought some magazines for my weapons. I got some spare parts for some of my weapons. One of the things I did get, because I noticed the particular company I was buying my magazines from, they had some Sten gun magazines in stock, so I purchased a few more. I do not have a Sten gun, but I try to stock up on a few magazines whenever I come across them because it is an easy to manufacture weapon. And I expect that there will be a considerable number of these that will be manufactured in Patriot or guerrilla weapons manufacturing facilities when things go hot. Now, this is a basic unmodified Sten magazine. They're 32 round capacity of 9mm. They were essentially a cheap copy of the magazine used for the MP40. They just simplified it. This type, the unmodified type, will typically be about $5 to $10 or even double the price of the type of magazine I'm going to show you here soon. Most of the magazines you are going to get, though, or come across at a decent price are going to be these. These are the 20 round ones. Now, all they did to modify these from this to bring it down to 20 round capacity is they installed 4 wires, 2 on each side. See down here, and then way up in here, they got it ground down, and then they painted over the top is the ends of those 2 wires. It's the same on this side. It is extremely simple to unmodify this to put it back to its 32 round capacity. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, I'm going to make this note: when these magazines typically show up, because they're over 70 years old, a lot of times when you're going to get them, they're going to be covered in grease, covered in dust, covered in dirt. Go through, wipe it down as best as you can first. I actually use 2 rags, one to wipe off all the grease and crud first, and then I get a little bit of a layer left, and I use another cleaner rag to wipe the last of it off. No, leaving the grease on is not good for preserving in the long run. That grease it's meant the end of its usefulness. Yes, I know some of it may be cosmoline, some of it's grease. Either way, it's a protective coating which was meant to keep these from rusting. First off, get it cleaned up and get a good look over the manufacturer of the magazine. You know, what's its general condition? Is it wore out? You know, is it have dents in it? Like this one, this is one that came in a box. You might see right here, something landed on this sometime during its lifetime. This magazine is not junk. It can be flattened back out. I'll have to come up with a good way of doing it, but I've heard people using like metal bars, putting it in there and then using a hammer or a vise to just squeeze it out to get that little dents and dings in it to flatten back out so it does not interfere with the fowler. Now, there are videos on returning these to the 32 round capacity. All of them I've come across say you need to use a drill press to do it. No, you really don't. For when I do it here, this is just the tools that you need for it. A electric drill with a 1/8 inch bit, some type of wire cutters, particularly diagonal cutters, a nail, hammer, and because when you get this apart, you're going to want to clean the inside also, get some of the grease, the crud, and the rust out, a rag, and a screwdriver. So for right now, I'm going to move this stuff to the side that I'm not going to be using. First off, we are going to have to take off the floor plate, which is pretty simple. You'll see one side is crimped over the edge, the other side's open. Down here you got a button. Take a screwdriver or something and then slide it towards the crimped side. Remember to keep pressure over the spring because the Sten mags are notorious for having extremely strong springs. There's a spring, floor plate. This is a good time to test your fowler too. Fowler. Now we got just the shell and the 4 wires. If you can look in there, you'll see 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. Take your edge of your wire cutters. And you pry up the ends a little bit. I'm just sending the camera guy to get another tool because sometimes I end up with one of these wires that's just down too far. So I'm sending him back to the tool room, see if he can get me a pliers. I don't always need it. Sometimes I do. Most of the time I can just use I'm trying not to mess up the finish too bad. Thank you, camera guy. Let's see here if we can. So sometimes you do need a pliers. Not always, just once in a while I found. You can pry it up, push them through, or sometimes I've done is just go through. If I can get it under there. Whoever did this one did a pretty good job with the wires. Pry it up a little bit. And then just clip them. Twist them off, clip them off. And then they'll still just push through pretty easy. Okay, so we got the wires that are free. So now we're going to look up here and you'll find where the wires were kind of soldered into place and then they were ground and then painted. You'll see the 2 little holes. I identified them there. Take the drill with the 1/8 inch bit. Simulating our drill press, you put it right over where the hole is and then very slowly the wires are made out of brass, the magazines out of steel, so I just gotta get it. I check it, see if we're gonna be good here. And then if I did it right, I should take the nail and the hammer, give it a couple whacks, and the nail wire pops right out. I don't go full bore with the drill where I'm just making the hole wider. I'm just trying to make a little dimple, a little dent into the top of the wire here, that I can slip the nail, the end of the nail, right into that dimple, give it a couple whacks and pop it out. So we'll rinse and repeat here. Where's our next one? Right there. Yes, I'm aware that my drill bits are a little wore out, a little dull, because they got a lot of years of use on them. Let's try this. Wire number 2. And see, it's not too marked up here. Popped out down here easy. Other side. Okay, there's where they are. Third wire. Find number 4. Number 4 wire. So you got all 4 wires out. And we go through, wipe down all the parts good, get off the old grease, the old dust, sand. Try to get as much cleaned out as you can. Especially from the inside parts that you weren't able to get. It's easier to do this without the gloves on, but I'm not taking those off. Let's go through on the entire spring all the way up. There is supposed to be replacement springs for the Sten mags if you come across one that's really messed up. It wouldn't hurt to have a few replacement springs just in case. So you can see on here the crud that came out from just around the spring when I was going up. Look down inside and it's pretty dirty in there, pretty cruddy. So now, take this, shove it in like so. Okay, that got it one good pass so far. I think we're going to go the other way now. Trying to wad the rag right inside here into a great big cluster or wad here. That it will, as it's going through, it's filling all the way in around in there, and it'll clean the stuff as it's pushing through. And I should have grabbed a longer screwdriver this time, but I didn't. When I do the other magazines in the batch here after the video, I'll grab a bigger one. But that's a lot better, not nearly as much crud. Acceptable. Now, I always keep one magazine nearby that I have not taken apart so I can look at, see the direction of the fowler. We got the hump is on the right side. So this hump is going to be on the right side of the magazine. Slide it in. Look at how the floor plate is. Oh, you want to be a pain on the butt. Alright. Line up the floor spring and the fowler. Keep tension. Sometimes it's hard to get the button to line up just right in the hole. This one is close enough. As the spring would be used, it'll pop into there. And then take something. Test your magazine. Traveling just fine. I don't hear any binding, don't hear any grinding, so now it's been essentially restored. Now we're back to a 32 round capacity, and we can go through. If you really want to spend the time, you could, and you have the capabilities, you could fill in the holes. I don't think it's overly needed. Originally these magazines had holes drilled in the back here so that you could see how many rounds were in it. All the magazines I have, those holes were filled in. I don't have a single magazine for a Sten that still has the holes in it. All of them were filled in over the years. If you want to, after you get it wiped down real good, you think there's too much of the finish missing, it's too shiny, you can hit them with paint. I had one that I got a hold of from somewhere. They went through and painted it green. I would say when you're putting on the paint, only go up to here. to this point because that's the stop for on the mag well. It stops at that point, so I would only paint up to that point because past up in here, this is the area that's going to be sliding in the weapon, and it's just going to cause problems and bind over time. Plus you run the risk that when the weapon gets hotter, this is literally right next to the chamber, you can start melting this paint inside your mag well, which would take a considerable number of rounds. Yes, I'm aware of that. But you run the risk that you're going to start melting the paint from these magazines inside that mag well, and you're going to get a magazine that's just going to be so gummed up in there from the paint you're not going to be able to extract it. So only go as far as the magazine stop there with painting. It's a pretty straightforward process on getting these back up to 32 rounds. I am not aware of it being against any federal law to take these from 20s and restore them to 32s. There might be, or there will be, restrictions in certain states, so obviously like California. I do suspect that some of your California safe 30 round magazines for the ARs that might be floating around out there, it'll be something similar for if you absolutely have to get some of those California 10 rounders back up to its original 30 round capacity. Straightforward. Didn't require a lot of work, nothing too fancy, nothing too complicated. These wires, as I mentioned, are made out of brass, because brass does not corrode as bad as copper or steel. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot Militia movements, always remember, essayons.